You played the game by my script. And now the curtain falls.
The sound of my wife laughing at another man's joke should have been my first warning, but I was too busy being the perfect Hollywood husband to notice the knife sliding between my ribs. My name is Ethan Drake, and 3 months ago, I thought I had everything. At 41, I'd carved out a decent niche playing the charming villain in streaming thrillers and the occasional network procedural. Nothing Oscar-worthy, but enough to afford the Brentwood mansion, the Tesla in the driveway, and my wife Savannah's endless shopping sprees at Rodeo Drive. Savannah Drake, née Morrison, had been a catalog model before we married 18 years ago. At 39, she still turned heads with her platinum blonde hair and surgically enhanced everything else. She spent her days at yoga classes, charity luncheons, and what she called girl time with her pack of equally vapid friends. Our daughter Chloe was 17, sharp as a blade and twice as cutting when she wanted to be. She had her mother's looks, but thankfully seemed to have inherited my brain. At least, that's what I told myself before everything went to heck. The night it all started unraveling was supposed to be a celebration. I just booked a recurring role on a new Netflix series, and Savannah insisted on throwing a dinner party to show off to her friends. The usual suspects gathered in our dining room: Layla Chen, a real estate agent with a mouth like a broken faucet; Bree Williams, who enabled every bad decision Savannah ever made; and Tasha Rodriguez, whose jealousy of Savannah was so obvious, it practically had its own zip code. I was in the kitchen opening another bottle of wine when I heard Layla's voice drift through the archway. "So, Savannah, how's that personal trainer working out for you?" The emphasis on working out made it clear she wasn't talking about bicep curls. Savannah's laugh was like breaking crystal. "Oh, Mark is incredible. So much energy, and he's so attentive to my needs." "I bet he is," Tasha muttered. "Must be nice having all that dark chocolate to yourself." My hand froze on the wine bottle. Dark chocolate. I knew Savannah's trainer was a guy named Mark Johnson, but I'd never met him. She always scheduled their sessions when I was on set. "The best part," Savannah continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "is how eager he is to please. Young men are just so grateful, Bree giggled. "Grateful for what exactly?" "For everything I teach them. Mark told me yesterday that I'm the most experienced woman he's ever been with. Can you imagine? At my age, still corrupting the youth of America?" The wine bottle slipped from my fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The conversation in the dining room stopped abruptly. "Ethan," Savannah called out, her voice suddenly sweet as artificial honey. "Everything okay in there?" "Just dropped a bottle," I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'll clean it up." As I knelt to pick up the glass shards, I heard Chloe's voice join the conversation. My daughter had apparently come downstairs during my moment of revelation. "Mom, you left your phone upstairs. Mark texted asking if you want to meet at the usual place tomorrow." "Thanks, baby. Tell him yes, but make it an hour later. I want to get my nails done first." "Already did. I also confirmed with him about this weekend. He's really excited about the trip to Catalina." Catalina? We had never discussed any trip to Catalina, but apparently my wife and her trainer had it all planned out, with my 17-year-old daughter acting as their personal secretary. I stood up slowly, glass crunching under my feet, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. It wasn't heartbreak. That would come later. This was something colder, more dangerous. This was the moment when Ethan Drake, the loving husband and father, started to die, and something else began to take his place. Walking back into the dining room with a fresh bottle of wine, I smiled at the 4 women who had just destroyed my world, without even realizing it. "Sorry about that," I said, refilling their glasses with steady hands. "Now what were we talking about?" The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced conversation and fake smiles. Savannah's friends left around 11, kissing her cheeks and promising to call soon. Chloe disappeared to her room, claiming she had homework. Savannah went upstairs to take a long bath, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a half-empty bottle of wine. I sat in my home office, staring at family photos on the wall, Savannah and me on our wedding day, the 3 of us at Chloe's graduation from middle school. Last Christmas morning, all of us laughing around the tree. When had it all become a lie? Or had it always been one, and I was just too blind to see it? My phone buzzed with a text from my agent, Rick Martinez. Congrats again on the Netflix gig. You're going to end it, buddy. If only he knew how prophetic those words would turn out to be. Around midnight, I decided to go upstairs. Savannah was already in bed, her back turned to me, breathing in the deep rhythm of sleep. Or pretending to. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, studying the woman I'd shared a bed with for 18 years, wondering how many lies she'd told me while lying right there beside me. The next morning, Savannah was unusually cheerful at breakfast. She kissed my cheek and told me she'd be out most of the day yoga class, then lunch with the girls, then a training session with Mark. "Don't wait up," she said, grabbing her designer gym bag. "I might be late." After she left, I found myself standing in her walk-in closet, surrounded by thousands of dollars worth of clothes and shoes, all paid for with my money. On impulse, I started looking through her purses. In the third one I checked, tucked into a hidden compartment, I found a phone I'd never seen before. A burner phone. My hands shook as I powered it on. No lock screen. Savannah had always been careless with technology. The message history made my stomach turn. Months of explicit text between her and Mark Johnson, photos I never wanted to see, videos that made it clear their training sessions had nothing to do with fitness. But it was the thread with Chloe that really destroyed me. "Mom, I told Mark you can meet him at the Marriott downtown tomorrow at 2, room 412. "Thanks, baby. You're such a good wingman. Just looking out for your happiness. Dad's been so boring lately anyway. Don't worry about your father. He's too wrapped up in his little TV shows to notice anything. Besides, what he doesn't know won't hurt him." True. Mark sent some new photos, by the way. Want me to forward them to you? God, yes, that boy has such a beautiful body. I dropped the phone like it was on fire. My wife was cheating on me with her trainer, my daughter was helping her do it, and apparently, I was the clueless fool who was paying for it all. But as I sat there in that closet, surrounded by the evidence of my family's betrayal, I realized something important. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was angry, and anger, unlike heartbreak, was something I could use. I carefully put the phone back where I found it and went downstairs to make some calls. The first was to my lawyer. The second was to a private investigator Rick had recommended years ago for a role I was researching. The third was to my accountant. If Savannah and Chloe wanted to play games, I was going to teach them the rules. After all, I was an actor. I knew how to put on a performance, and I knew how to make sure the audience never forgot the show. The curtain was rising on the final act of my marriage, and I intended to steal every scene. The next few weeks were the performance of my life. Every morning I kissed Savannah goodbye and told her I loved her. Every evening I asked about her day and listened to her elaborate lies about yoga classes and shopping trips. When Chloe came home from school, I helped her with homework and asked about her friends, all while knowing she was scheduling my wife's adultery like a personal assistant from heck. Meanwhile, I was building my case. The private investigator, a former LAPD detective named Julia Santos, was worth every penny of her steep fee. Within a week, she had photos of Savannah and Mark entering and leaving hotels across the city. She tracked their movements, documented their meetings, and even managed to get audio recordings of some of their more intimate conversations. "Your wife isn't very careful," Julia told me during one of our clandestine meetings at a coffee shop in Venice. "She uses credit cards you pay for to book rooms. She meets him at public places where anyone could see them. It's like she wants to get caught." "Maybe she does," I said, studying the photos spread across the table. Mark Johnson was everything I wasn't. 25 years old, 6'3", with the kind of sculpted physique that came from spending 8 hours a day in the gym. He was also, I was learning, dumber than a box of rocks. "He's been posting about their relationship on his private Instagram," Julia continued. "Photos of expensive gifts, screenshots of text messages, even videos of them together. The kid's building a portfolio of evidence against himself." "What about Chloe?" Julia's expression softened slightly. "That's harder to watch. She's not just helping them communicate, she's actively covering for them, lying to you about where her mother is, creating alibis, even helping them plan their meetings. I'm sorry, Ethan. I know she's your daughter." I stared at a photo of Savannah and Mark kissing in the parking lot of the Beverly Hills Hotel. "She's not my daughter anymore. She made that choice when she decided to help destroy our family." The hardest part wasn't the evidence gathering. It was maintaining my performance at home. Savannah had become more brazen, staying out later and lying more obviously. She'd come home from her training sessions, glowing with intimate satisfaction, then climb into bed next to me like nothing had happened. One night, she even had the audacity to initiate closeness with me, probably to ease her guilt. I went through the motions, but all I could think about were the photos Julia had shown me earlier that day of Savannah doing the same things with Mark in a hotel room I was paying for. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening. I was supposed to be at a script reading, but it had been canceled at the last minute. I came home early to find Savannah's car in the driveway and voices coming from our bedroom. I crept upstairs, my heart pounding, and listened at the door. "God, I love having the house to ourselves," Savannah was saying. "Ethan's so predictable, he'll be gone for hours." "What about Chloe?" Mark's voice was deep, with a slight accent I couldn't place. "She's at her boyfriend's house. I told her to stay there until 10. "Good, because I want to do things to you that might make her uncomfortable." I heard Savannah laugh, followed by sounds I definitely didn't want to identify. They were in my bed, in my house, while I was supposed to be working to pay for their lifestyle. I pulled out my phone and started recording. If they wanted to use my home as their personal brothel, the least I could do was document it for the divorce proceedings. 20 minutes later, I heard them moving around, getting dressed. I quickly went back downstairs and pretended to be just arriving home. "Savannah?" I called out. "I'm back early," I heard scrambling upstairs, whispered voices, and then Savannah appeared at the top of the stairs in her robe. "Oh, hi, honey. I was just taking a shower. How was the reading?" "Canceled," I said, watching her face. "Is everything okay? You look flushed." "Just hot from the shower," she said, but I could see panic in her eyes. "I'll be down in a minute." I walked into the living room and waited. A few minutes later, I heard the back door open and close quietly. Mark, making his escape through our backyard like the coward he was. Savannah came downstairs 15 minutes later, fully dressed, acting like nothing had happened. "Want to order dinner?" she asked brightly. "I'm thinking Thai food." "Sure," I said. "But first, I have something to tell you. I got a call from Julia Martinez today." Savannah froze. "Who?" "Julia Martinez. She's a private investigator. Someone hired her to follow you around, take pictures, document your activities. Apparently, they have quite a file on you." The color drained from Savannah's face. "What are you talking about?" "Someone thinks you're having an affair. Can you imagine? They have photos, recordings, hotel receipts, the works. That's ridiculous. Who would do such a thing?" I shrugged, enjoying her panic. "Could be anyone. A jealous friend, maybe. Or someone who thinks they're looking out for me. The point is, Julia called to give me a heads up. Professional courtesy, she said. Thought I should know someone was spreading rumors about my wife." Savannah sat down heavily on the couch. "What did you tell her?" "I told her she was wasting her client's money, that my wife would never cheat on me, that we have a strong marriage built on trust and honesty." I smiled at her. I was right, wasn't I? "Of course," she whispered. "Ethan, I would never—" "I know," I said, leaning over to kiss her forehead. "That's why I'm not worried. But maybe you should be more careful about where you go and who you're seen with. You know how people in this town love to gossip." That night, Savannah barely slept. I could feel her tossing and turning next to me, probably wondering how much I knew and what I was planning to do about it. Good. Let her worry. Let her wonder. Let her feel a fraction of the anxiety she'd been putting me through for months. The next morning, I made my first public move. I called Tasha Rodriguez. "Ethan! How nice to hear from you. How are you doing?" "I'm great, Tasha. Listen, I wanted to ask you something. You and Savannah are close, right?" "Of course. We've been friends for years." "Good. I'm planning a surprise party for her birthday next month, and I want to make sure I invite all the right people. Has she mentioned anyone new in her life lately? Any new friends I should know about?" There was a pause. "New friends?" "Yeah, you know how Savannah is. She's always meeting people at yoga class or the gym. I just want to make sure I don't leave anyone out." "Well," Tasha said slowly, "she has been talking about her trainer a lot lately. Mark something?" "Mark Johnson, right. Of course. I should definitely invite him. Do you know how I can reach him?" I think Savannah has his number." "Perfect. Thanks, Tasha. Oh, and don't mention this to Savannah, okay? I want it to be a surprise." "Of course," Tasha said, but I could hear the wheels turning in her head. She'd always been jealous of Savannah, and now I'd given her permission to start asking questions. I made similar calls to Layla and Bree, each time planting seeds of doubt and curiosity. By the end of the day, I knew Savannah's phone would be ringing with concerned friends asking innocent questions about her relationship with her trainer. The game was on, and I was playing to win. The beauty of revenge, I was learning, was in the details. Not the big, dramatic gestures that you see in movies, but the small, careful moves that slowly tighten the noose around your target's neck. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Savannah become increasingly paranoid. Her friends were asking questions. Tasha had started making pointed comments about women who don't appreciate what they have. Even Bree, her most loyal enabler, seemed to be pulling back from their friendship. Meanwhile, I was documenting everything. Julia had provided me with a small recording device that looked like a regular pen. I started carrying it everywhere, capturing conversations that would later prove invaluable in court. The breakthrough came when Chloe made a mistake. She was on the phone with Mark one afternoon, thinking I was still at the studio. I'd come home early again, a habit I was developing, and heard her in the kitchen. "No, she can't meet you tonight. Dad's being weird lately, asking lots of questions. Mom thinks someone might be watching her." I crept closer to the kitchen door, my pen recorder running. I know, Chloe continued. "But we have to be more careful. Maybe you guys should cool it for a while." There was a pause as Mark responded. "What do you mean, what's in it for you?" Chloe's voice turned sharp. "I'm trying to protect both of you. If Dad finds out, we're all screwed." Another pause. "Fine. If you want to keep seeing her, then you need to pay me for the risk I'm taking. $500 a week, cash. I'm not running this operation for free anymore." I almost dropped the recorder. My 17-year-old daughter wasn't just facilitating my wife's affair, she was getting paid for it. "Don't give me attitude, Mark. Without me, you two would have been caught months ago. I'm the one who covers for Mom when Dad asks questions. I'm the one who books your hotel rooms so they don't show up on the credit cards he checks. I'm the one who makes sure you two can keep playing house while he pays for everything." The conversation continued for another few minutes, with Chloe negotiating her fee like a seasoned pimp. When she finally hung up, I quietly left through the front door and came back in loudly, calling out that I was home. Chloe appeared in the hallway, smiling sweetly. "Hi, Dad. How was work?" "Great," I said, studying her face. "How was school?" "Fine. Just talking to Sarah about our history project." Sarah. Right. I made a mental note to add extortion to the list of charges I was building against my own daughter. That evening, I called Julia and played her the recording. "Jesus, Ethan, your kid's running a blackmail operation." "She's not my kid anymore," I said. "She's a co-conspirator. Can we use this?" "Absolutely. This proves premeditation, ongoing deception, and financial fraud. Your wife and daughter aren't just cheating, they're stealing from you to fund the affair." "Good, because I'm ready to move to the next phase." "What did you have in mind?" "Mark Johnson is an influencer, right? He makes his living off his public image?" "Yeah, about 50,000 followers on Instagram, another 20,000 on TikTok. He promotes fitness supplements and workout programs. Why? Because I think it's time the world got to know the real Mark Johnson." The plan was simple, but devastating. Mark was hosting a wellness retreat at a hotel in Malibu the following weekend. 50 of his followers had paid $200 each to spend the day learning about authentic living and spiritual fitness. Savannah was going as his assistant, though I'm sure her duties would extend far beyond handing out water bottles. Julia and I spent 3 days preparing. We set up fake social media accounts, booked a room at the same hotel, and prepared our materials. I even hired a couple of actors from my network to help with the performance. Saturday morning, I kissed Savannah goodbye and told her to have fun at her spa day with the girls. "You're so sweet," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I'll probably be home late. You know how these things go. Take all the time you need," I said. "I'll just be here working on my lines for Monday." An hour after she left, I was in my car heading to Malibu. The wellness retreat was being held in the hotel's conference room, with about 40 people sitting on yoga mats, listening to Mark talk about finding your authentic self. He was shirtless, naturally, and Savannah was sitting in the front row wearing workout clothes that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I watched from the back of the room as Mark led the group through some basic meditation exercises. He was actually a decent speaker, I had to admit. Charismatic, confident, completely believable as a spiritual guru. Too bad he was about to be exposed as a fraud. At the lunch break, while everyone was mingling on the hotel's patio, Julia and I put our plan into motion. She'd hacked into the hotel's sound system earlier that morning, and I'd prepared a special audio presentation for Mark's afternoon session. When the group reconvened at 2 o'clock, Mark was setting up his laptop to show a video about embracing vulnerability. Instead, when he hit play, the speakers filled with the sound of him and Savannah having love in a hotel room. "Oh God, Mark, you're so much better than my husband," Savannah's voice echoed through the conference room. He's so boring in bed. You make me feel like a real woman again. The room erupted in chaos. People were grabbing their phones, recording everything. Mark was frantically trying to shut off the laptop, but Julia had locked him out of the system. The audio kept playing, getting more explicit by the second. I can't wait until I can divorce Ethan and we can be together, Savannah's voice continued. He's so stupid, he has no idea what's happening right under his nose. Savannah was standing in the front row, her face white as paper, looking around desperately for an exit. But there wasn't one. The room was packed and everyone was staring at her. Turn it off, Mark was shouting at his laptop. Someone help me turn this off. But the show was just getting started. The audio switched to a recording of Chloe and Mark discussing payment for her services as their go-between. Then came the phone conversations where Savannah and Mark mocked me, calling me pathetic and clueless. By the time Julia finally cut the audio, half the room was recording with their phones, and the other half was demanding refunds. Mark's spiritual guru persona had been completely destroyed, replaced by the image of a home-wrecking gigolo who was stupid enough to record his own crimes. I stood up from my seat in the back of the room and started walking toward the front. People recognized me. I wasn't A-list famous, but I was recognizable enough that several people pointed and whispered. "Excuse me," I said loudly, and the room fell silent. I think there's been some confusion here. You see, the woman in those recordings is my wife, Savannah Drake, and the man trying to shut off that laptop is Mark Johnson, her personal trainer, and apparently her business partner in adultery. Savannah tried to run, but there were too many people blocking her path. Mark had given up on the laptop and was just standing there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Now, I know what you're all thinking, I continued, enjoying the attention. How could a woman cheat on her loving husband with her trainer? It's such a cliché, right? But here's the twist. They've been using my 17-year-old daughter as their pimp. She's been booking hotel rooms, arranging meetings, and taking payment for her services. It's like a family business, except I'm the only one who wasn't invited to participate. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Call the police!" "Oh, I will," I said. But first, I thought Mark's followers deserved to know what kind of man they've been supporting. This is your authentic spiritual leader, folks. A guy who seduces married women and pays teenage girls to help him do it. The crowd was getting ugly now, demanding their money back and shouting accusations at Mark. Several people were live streaming the whole thing on social media. Mark's career as an influencer was over, and we all knew it. Security finally arrived and started clearing the room. As people filed out, many of them stopped to shake my hand or pat me on the back. A few women gave Savannah dirty looks and called her names I won't repeat. In the parking lot, Mark finally found his voice. He cornered me by my car, his face red with rage. "You son of a witch. You ruined everything." "I didn't ruin anything," I said calmly. "I just shared your authentic self with your followers. Isn't that what you're always preaching about?" He took a swing at me, but I'd been expecting it. I ducked, and his fist hit my car window instead. The glass cracked, and he yelped in pain. "Assault and property damage," I said, pulling out my phone to record him. "This just keeps getting better." "You don't understand," Mark said, cradling his injured hand. "Savannah and I are in love. We're going to be together." "Really?" "Because from what I heard in those recordings, you're just a side piece with a nice body and a small brain. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she'll choose you over the house, the cars, and the credit cards I pay for." Mark's face crumpled as the reality of his situation hit him. Without my money, Savannah had nothing to offer him but middle-aged desperation and a teenager with blackmail skills. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is," I replied. "Your 15 minutes of fame just ended, Mark. Time to find a real job." As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Genuine happiness. The trap had worked perfectly. Mark's reputation was destroyed, Savannah was publicly humiliated, and I had everything on video for the divorce proceedings. But this was just the opening act. The real show was about to begin. The video of Mark's wellness retreat meltdown went viral within hours. Someone had live-streamed the whole thing on TikTok, and by Sunday morning, #MarkJohnsonExposed was trending nationwide. The comments were brutal but hilarious, people calling him everything from discount guru to home-wrecking himbo. More importantly for my purposes, the story had been picked up by entertainment blogs and gossip sites. "TV actor exposes wife's affair and epic public revenge" was the headline on TMZ. People magazine wanted an interview. Even my agent Rick was calling, though he wasn't sure if he should congratulate me or have me committed. Ethan, buddy, what the heck were you thinking? Rick's voice was strained when he called Sunday afternoon. You just nuked your personal life on social media. My personal life was already nuked, I said, sitting in my office and scrolling through the comments on various posts. I just made sure everyone else knew about it too. The studio's not happy. They're worried about the Netflix series. Why? I'm the victim here. If anything, this should get me sympathy points. That's not how it works, and you know it. Hollywood doesn't like drama, even when you're not the one causing it. I sighed. Rick was right, of course. But I was past the point of caring about my career. Some things were more important than money, and right now, revenge was at the top of that list. Savannah had come home Saturday night in tears, begging me to talk about this like adults. I'd listened to her sob story about how Mark had seduced her, how she'd never meant for things to go so far, how she was sorry and wanted to work things out. Then I'd played her the recording of Chloe negotiating her pimp fees, and Savannah's tune changed real quick. You recorded our daughter? She'd screamed. What kind of father does that? The kind whose daughter is running a blackmail operation out of his house, I'd replied calmly. But don't worry, I recorded you too. Want to hear the part where you call me boring and pathetic? That's when she'd switched tactics and threatened to take me to court for emotional misuse and invasion of privacy. I'd laughed and told her to call her lawyer. I'd already called mine. Monday morning brought a new development. I was on set, trying to focus on my lines, when Julia called with interesting news. Mark's been busy, she said. He's been posting on his Instagram stories claiming you set him up, that the whole thing was a conspiracy to destroy his career. Let me guess, he's playing the victim? Worse. He's claiming you're the one who's been violent, that Savannah came to him for comfort because you were controlling and aggressive. He's even posted some photos of bruises on Savannah's arms, claiming you did that to her. I felt my pulse spike. Those are from her Pilates classes. She's always getting bruises from those reformer machines. I know that, and you know that, but his followers don't. He's spinning this as a story about a powerful man destroying a young entrepreneur who tried to help his mistreated wife. How many followers does he have left? That's the crazy part. He's actually gaining followers. The controversy is bringing him attention. He's gone from 50,000 to almost 70,000 since Saturday. I hung up and sat in my trailer fuming. Not only was Mark trying to salvage his reputation, he was using my wife's lies to do it. Time to escalate. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I went on social media myself. I'd always avoided Twitter and Instagram, preferring to let my publicist handle that stuff. But desperate times called for desperate measures. I posted a simple message. Some people are spreading lies about me and my family. Tomorrow night, I'll be on Jimmy Fallon telling the truth. Bring popcorn. It wasn't true. I hadn't booked any TV appearances. But within an hour, my publicist was calling to tell me that 3 different talk shows wanted me on. And Jimmy's people were offering to bump another guest to make room for me Tuesday night. Are you sure about this, Ethan? My publicist asked. Once you go public with personal stuff, you can't take it back. I'm already public, I said. Now I just want to control the narrative. Tuesday evening, I sat across from Jimmy Fallon in my best suit, looking like the wronged husband America wanted to support. Jimmy was clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. He usually stuck to safe, funny interviews, but the network had made it clear this was going to be ratings gold. So, Ethan, Jimmy started carefully, there's been a lot of talk online about your personal situation. Do you want to tell us what really happened? I leaned forward slightly, making eye contact with the camera. Jimmy, I want to be clear about something. I'm not here to trash my wife or embarrass my daughter. I'm here because people are spreading lies about me, and I think the truth deserves to be heard. What kind of lies? Well, there's this narrative going around that I'm some kind of toxic husband who drove my wife into the arms of another man, that I'm a controlling monster who destroyed a young man's career out of jealousy. I paused for effect. The truth is, I found out my wife was having an affair with her trainer, and my 17-year-old daughter was helping them coordinate it. Not only that, but my daughter was being paid for her services as their go-between. The audience gasped. Jimmy looked like he wanted to crawl under his desk. That's a serious accusation, Ethan. It's not an accusation, Jimmy. It's a fact. I have recordings, photographs, hotel receipts, text messages, everything you'd need to prove it in court, which, by the way, I will be doing soon. So you're filing for divorce? I already have. But more than that, I'm considering pressing charges for fraud, extortion, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. When a grown man pays a teenager to help him have an affair with her mother, that crosses some serious legal lines. The interview continued for another 10 minutes, with me calmly laying out the facts while Jimmy tried to steer the conversation towards safer ground. I made sure to mention that I had evidence for everything I was claiming and that anyone who wanted to see it could wait for the court proceedings. By the time the show aired that night, #TeamEthan was trending on Twitter. The public narrative had completely flipped. Mark went from gaining followers to losing them by the thousands. Savannah's friends started distancing themselves from her publicly, posting supportive messages about me on their social media. Most importantly, the entertainment industry took notice. My phone started ringing with offers, not just acting jobs, but producing deals, endorsement opportunities, even a book deal. Apparently, America loved a wronged husband who fought back with style. But the best part was watching Mark's desperate attempts to control the damage. He posted a long video on Instagram, crying and claiming that I was using my Hollywood connections to destroy him. He begged his followers to support him, to not believe the lies I was spreading. The comments on his video were brutal. People were posting screenshots of his old posts with Savannah, calling him a homewrecker, and worse. Several of his sponsors dropped him. The supplement company that had been paying him to promote their products issued a statement distancing themselves from his personal conduct. Within a week, Mark Johnson went from rising influencer to social media pariah. His follower count plummeted, his income disappeared, and his reputation was in ruins. But I wasn't done yet. Mark and Savannah had made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated how far I was willing to go to protect myself and punish them for their betrayal. The real fireworks were still to come. The legal proceedings moved faster than I'd expected. My lawyer, Patricia Wong, was a shark in a designer suit who specialized in high-profile divorces. She took one look at my evidence and smiled like a predator who just spotted wounded prey. "This is the most documented case of adultery I've ever seen," she said during our first meeting. "Your wife and her boyfriend basically created a paper trail of their affair, and your daughter's involvement adds a whole new dimension to this." What kind of dimension? Well, technically, she's been acting as a paid facilitator for an extramarital affair. Depending on how we want to play this, we could argue that she's been engaging in a form of transactional misconduct, selling services to enable intimate encounters. I winced. "She's still my daughter, Patricia. I don't want to destroy her life. I understand. But you need to be prepared for the fact that Savannah's lawyer is going to paint you as the villain here. They'll claim you were an absent, controlling husband who drove your wife to seek comfort elsewhere. The daughter's involvement actually helps your case. It shows premeditation and ongoing deception." She was right. When Savannah's lawyer, a slick operator named David Chen, filed his response to my divorce petition, it was full of accusations about my emotional misuse and abandonment of my family. According to their version of events, I was a workaholic who ignored my wife's needs and then flew into a rage when she found happiness with someone else. They even had the audacity to claim that I'd orchestrated the wellness retreat humiliation as a form of domestic terrorism designed to destroy Savannah's mental health. But Patricia was ready for them. We'd spent weeks preparing our counterattack, and it was devastating. First, she released selected portions of the recordings I'd made, including the ones where Savannah mocked me and called me pathetic. Then she provided evidence of the money Savannah had been spending on Mark hotel rooms, expensive gifts, even a weekend trip to Vegas that I'd unknowingly paid for. The coup de grace was the evidence of Chloe's payment arrangement with Mark. Patricia had managed to track down bank records showing regular cash deposits into Chloe's account that corresponded exactly with Mark and Savannah's meeting schedule. "Your Honor," Patricia said during our first court hearing, "this isn't a case of a marriage falling apart due to neglect or incompatibility. This is a case of organized fraud. Mrs. Drake, with the help of her minor daughter, has been systematically stealing from my client to fund an extramarital affair. The daughter has been acting as a paid facilitator, essentially enabling compensated encounters out of the family home." David Chen objected, of course, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Margaret Torres, looked disgusted as she reviewed the documents. "Mr. Chen," Judge Torres said, "are you seriously asking this court to believe that your client's affair was justified by her husband's alleged neglect?" "Your Honor, my client was emotionally abandoned." Your client was paying a teenager to facilitate adultery, Judge Torres interrupted. And that teenager was her own daughter. I've seen a lot of ugly divorces in my courtroom, Mr. Chen, but this might be the most morally reprehensible behavior I've encountered. The hearing lasted 3 hours, and by the end, Savannah was in tears, and David Chen was clearly regretting taking her case. Judge Torres granted my request for an immediate restraining order against Mark, froze all joint assets pending a full financial audit, and ordered Savannah to move out of the family home within 30 days. But the real victory came when I got home that evening. Chloe was waiting for me in the living room, her eyes red from crying. "Dad, I need to talk to you." I sat down across from her, studying the daughter I'd raised for 17 years. She looked so young and vulnerable, nothing like the calculating teenager I'd heard on those recordings. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it. I was wrong to help Mom, and I was wrong to take money for it. I don't know what I was thinking." "You were thinking that your mother's happiness was more important than our family," I said. "You were thinking that I was too stupid to figure out what was going on. You were thinking that you could make some easy money by helping destroy my marriage." She flinched at each accusation, but didn't deny any of them. "I know you hate me now," she whispered. "I don't hate you, Chloe. I'm disappointed in you. I'm hurt by your choices, but I don't hate you." "What's going to happen to me?" I sighed. "That depends on you. Your mother's lawyer is going to try to use you as a character witness against me. They're going to ask you to lie in court, to say that I was violent or neglectful. If you do that, if you choose to keep helping your mother destroy what's left of this family, then we're done. You'll be 18 soon and you can make your own way in the world. And if I don't? If you tell the truth in court, if you take responsibility for your actions and try to make amends, then maybe we can rebuild our relationship. It won't be easy, and it won't be the same as it was before, but it's possible." Chloe was quiet for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. "I'll tell the truth," she said finally. "I'll testify for you, not against you. I owe you that much." 2 weeks later, Chloe kept her word. When David Chen called her as a witness, expecting her to support Savannah's claims of misuse and neglect, she instead told the truth about her role in facilitating the affair. "I helped my mother cheat on my father," she said clearly, looking directly at the judge. "I took money from Mark Johnson to arrange their meetings, book hotel rooms, and cover for them when my father asked questions. I did it because I thought my mother deserved to be happy, but I realize now that I was helping destroy my family." David Chen tried to salvage the situation, asking leading questions about my parenting and behavior, but Chloe stuck to the facts. "Yes, I worked a lot, but so did most actors. No, I was never violent or controlling. Yes, I'd been a good father who deserved better than what my mother and I had done to him." Savannah's case collapsed completely. By the time the divorce was finalized, I'd been awarded the house, both cars, and 70% of our joint assets. Savannah was ordered to pay me alimony, a delicious irony that wasn't lost on anyone following the case. Mark, meanwhile, had completely disappeared from social media. His Instagram account was deleted, his TikTok was gone, and even his LinkedIn profile had vanished. Julia had heard through her contacts that he'd moved back to his hometown in Ohio, where he was working at a local gym for minimum wage. But I wasn't satisfied yet. I'd won the legal battle, but I wanted to make sure that Mark and Savannah understood the full consequences of their actions. It was time for the final act. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was riding high. The Netflix series had been renewed for a second season, largely due to the publicity from my very public marital breakdown. I'd moved into a penthouse apartment in West Hollywood, and Chloe was living with me while finishing her senior year of high school. Our relationship was still fragile, built on a foundation of broken trust and mutual guilt, but we were making progress. She'd started therapy, gotten a part-time job to pay back the money she'd taken from Mark, and was working hard to rebuild my faith in her. Savannah, on the other hand, was struggling. The alimony I was paying her was enough to cover a modest apartment and basic expenses, but nothing like the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. Her friends had mostly abandoned her, embarrassed by the public scandal and unwilling to associate with someone who'd been exposed as a cheater and a fraud. She'd tried dating, but word travels fast in LA's social circles. Most men knew exactly who she was and what she'd done. The few who were willing to overlook her reputation were usually looking for a sugar mama, not realizing that her sugar daddy days were over. Mark had tried to contact me several times, sending pathetic emails begging me to call off the dogs and let him rebuild his life. I'd ignored them all. As far as I was concerned, Mark Johnson could rot in obscurity for the rest of his life. But then something happened that changed everything. I was at a wrap party for the Netflix series, celebrating the end of filming for season 1, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you won, but this isn't over. See you soon." I showed the message to Julia, who was at the party as my guest. She'd become more than just my private investigator over the past few months. We'd been dating casually, and I was starting to think it might turn into something more serious. "Probably just some random troll," she said, but I could see the concern in her eyes. "You've been getting a lot of attention lately. Some people don't handle other people's success very well." An hour later, I got another text. "Enjoying your party? Nice view from up here." I looked around the rooftop venue, scanning the crowd for anyone who looked out of place. The party was invite only, with security at the entrance, but LA was full of people who could talk their way into anywhere. That's when I saw him, Mark Johnson, standing near the bar, wearing an ill-fitting suit and a desperate expression. He'd lost weight since I'd last seen him, and his once perfect physique looked gaunt and unhealthy, but it was definitely him. I walked over to where he was standing, Julia close behind me. "Mark," I said calmly, "I have to say, I'm surprised to see you here. This is an industry party, and last I checked, you weren't in the industry anymore." He turned to face me, and I could see the rage burning in his eyes. "You destroyed my life, Ethan. You took everything from me." "I didn't take anything from you," I replied. "I just made sure everyone knew what kind of person you really are. If that destroyed your life, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to sleep with my wife and pay my daughter to help you do it." "Savannah loves me," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We were going to be together." "Really? When's the last time you talked to Savannah? Because from what I hear, she's not returning your calls." His face crumpled slightly, confirming what I'd suspected. Savannah had cut him loose the moment he became a liability instead of an asset. "You don't understand," Mark said, his voice rising. "I lost everything, my career, my apartment, my sponsors. I had to move back in with my parents. Do you know what that's like for a man my age?" "I know what it's like to have your wife cheat on you with a man half your age, while your daughter helps arrange the meetings," I said. "I know what it's like to find out that your family has been laughing at you behind your back for months. So forgive me if I don't have a lot of sympathy for your situation." Mark's hands clenched into fists. "This isn't over, Ethan. I'm going to make you pay for what you did to me." "Are you threatening me, Mark? Because there are about 50 people here with phones, and I'm pretty sure at least half of them are recording this conversation." I was right. I could see phones pointed in our direction from around the rooftop. Mark's dramatic entrance hadn't gone unnoticed. "I'm not threatening you," he said. "I'm promising you. You think you're so smart, so untouchable. But I know things about you, about your precious daughter. Things that could ruin you the way you ruined me." "What things?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Chloe didn't just help arrange meetings," Mark said, a nasty smile spreading across his face. "She participated. She watched sometimes. She even joined in once or twice. How do you think that's going to look when the media finds out?" I felt my blood turn to ice. If Mark was telling the truth, if Chloe had been intimately involved with him while he was sleeping with her mother, it would destroy her life and probably mine as well. But then I looked at his face more carefully and realized he was lying. This was a desperate man making a desperate play, hoping to find some leverage he could use against me. "You're full of crap, Mark," I said calmly. "Chloe was 17. If you'd had any kind of inappropriate contact with her, you'd be in prison right now, not standing here making empty threats." His smile faltered. "You don't know everything that happened." "I know enough. I know that you're a pathetic loser who's so desperate for relevance that you crash a party just to get 5 minutes of my attention. I know that Savannah dumped you the moment you became a liability, and I know that you're never going to recover from this because you don't have the character or the intelligence to learn from your mistakes." The crowd around us had grown larger, with people openly filming our confrontation. Mark looked around nervously, realizing that whatever he said or did next would be broadcast across social media within minutes. "This isn't over," he repeated, but his voice was weaker now. Yes, it is, I said. Security? Two large men in black suits appeared at my side. I'd hired extra security for the party, knowing that my increased public profile might attract unwanted attention. This man is trespassing, I told them. Please escort him out. As security grabbed Mark's arms, he started shouting, "You think you're so perfect, Ethan? You think you're the victim here? You drove Savannah into my arms. You were a terrible husband and a worse father." The crowd was eating it up, phones recording every word. Mark's final public meltdown was going to be trending on social media within the hour. "Maybe," I called out as security dragged him toward the exit, "but at least I never had to pay a teenager to get laid." The crowd laughed and applauded. Mark's face turned red with rage and humiliation as he was dragged away, still shouting threats and accusations that no one believed. As the party returned to normal, Julia squeezed my hand. "That was intense. Are you okay?" "I'm perfect," I said, and for the first time in months, I actually meant it. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, Chloe knocked on my bedroom door. "Dad? I saw the videos online. Mark was at your party?" "He was. He's gone now and he won't be bothering us again." "What did he want?" I studied her face, looking for any sign that Mark's accusations might have been true, but all I saw was concern and curiosity. "He wanted to blame me for the consequences of his own actions," I said. "Some people never learn to take responsibility for their mistakes." Chloe nodded. "I'm glad you're okay. And Dad, I'm proud of you for how you handled all of this. I know I don't have the right to be proud of you after what I did, but I am anyway." "You have every right," I said, pulling her into a hug. "You're my daughter, and you always will be. We both made mistakes, but we're learning from them. That's what matters." As I watched the news coverage of Mark's meltdown the next morning, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. Mark Johnson, the man who'd helped destroy my marriage and corrupt my daughter, was finished. His final desperate attempt to hurt me had only made him look more pathetic and ensured that he'd never be able to show his face in public again. Savannah had texted me that morning, a simple message. "I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve what we did to you." I didn't reply. Some apologies come too late to matter. But as I sat in my penthouse looking out at the city where I'd rebuilt my life and my career, I realized that I'd gotten something better than an apology. I'd gotten justice, I'd gotten revenge, and most importantly, I'd gotten my self-respect back. Mark Johnson and Savannah Drake had tried to make me the fool in their little drama. Instead, I'd turned the tables and made them the laughingstock of the entire country. The curtain had fallen on their performance, and the audience had given their verdict with thunderous applause for me and deafening silence for them. In the end, that was all the revenge I needed.